Yo, what's going on? What's going on? What's popping? What's popping? Hey, well, unfortunately, yesterday marks another day where there was another mass shooting in the United States of America, where in a small town called Uvalde, Texas, which is 85 miles away from San Antonio, an 18-year-old young man, or well, young male, walked inside of an elementary school with an AR-15 assault rifle and went into a classroom full of children and shot many of these children, which resulted in 19 children dead and 2 teachers dead. So that is a total of 21 people within that school dead, which is 19 children and 2 teachers. Let me double check to see. Yeah, okay. I'm just double checking. So, and I would like to give a special rest in power of this latest mass shooting, and my condolences go to their families. But as I've stated several times in regards to these mass shootings, there's always some sort of political agenda behind them. And we all know that. Like, well, a lot of people believe that, but a lot of people know that that's where I stand. And a lot of people in these YouTube spaces stand on that also. And it's not to belittle or to take anything away from the victims of this tragedy. But I stand on the fact that, and I've always stood on this, that most of these politicians, especially on the Democratic side, don't even care about one victim of these unfortunate and horrific shootings. They only care about promoting their own agenda, thus using these types of horrific events to help push their agenda forward, and utilizing that to convince the masses and use the empathy of the masses to agree on policies being changed. And one of these things is concerning gun control. Whenever the media speaks about these mass shootings, these so-called mass shootings, the next thing that the media and politicians talk about is gun control. Gun control. How to create new policies into stopping, or limiting or reducing the flow of guns into the population. Oh, how come this person is able to get access to these guns as if the Second Amendment does not exist? It's always that. It's unfortunate that the deaths of people end up being politicized. And not only that, but the thing is with gun control is that it doesn't matter how much restrictions that the government, whether state or federal or local, put on gun rights. That's not going to stop these incidents from happening. I mean, look at my home city, New York City, in which ever since 2020, gun violence have just rose. It have just rose and increased. Yet New York City has some of the most strictest gun laws among all major cities in the United States. I think Chicago is like maybe the only other metropolitan city that has a gun law which is as strict or stricter than New York City. And it's ironic I said Chicago because look at all the gun violence that happened in Chicago. So if these mass shootings are a product of government mind control, if these mass shootings are not a product of Project MK Ultra, where people are underneath the influence of mind control, CIA mind control, thus get them to do something that horrific. If these gunmen in these mass shootings act on their own, right, then putting more restrictions on gun ownership and gun use is not really going to prevent these things from happening again in the future. What's going to stop these things from happening, assuming that these gunmen are acting on their own when they do these shootings, is you change the environment. You do something to improve the environment that these individuals have lived in and gone up and have gone through. Like, what do I mean by that? Because in a lot of these situations, right? In a lot of these incidents concerning gun control, concerning these mass shootings, you then always hear about the gunman always having some sort of mental issue, always having some sort of complex issue concerning these individuals. Whether they've been bullied growing up or they've gone through some sort of abuse. Whatever you not that I'm trying to make these gunmen come out to look like victims, but if these gunmen acted on their own and the media put out the type of rough environments that they've gone through, maybe if you want to reduce the number of these mass shootings, maybe something must be done to improve the environment that people live in that would reduce the chances of them coming from an abusive background or end up having some sort of mental breakdown that will get them to go crazy and do these things. That's what I believe would change or drastically reduce mass shootings. You change the environment that people live in that would cause them to be depressed or mentally break down to the point that they'll go insane and do something like that. That is if these gunmen acted on their own, in which, in my personal opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, this is just my personal theory, I don't believe that a lot of these gunmen in these mass shootings acted on their own. I believe that they are a product of Project MK Ultra. If you don't know what Project MK Ultra is, go do the research on your own to find out. I'm not going to break this down to you in this video. I believe that they are products of government or CIA mind control, in which they are sent out to do these things in order to put a certain amount of fear to the public thus convincing the public that the only way for them to be safe from future mass shootings is if they accept laws being changed that would further remove or further restrict their Second Amendment rights. That's my theory on that. My theory may be correct or may be incorrect, but until further notice, that is my theory. And to go on when it comes to my theory, when it comes to that, I want to read an article. I want to read two articles to you guys because it's funny that these. So let me share the screen and read some of these articles. Well, two of these articles. All right. This is going to be the first article that I'm going to read to you guys. And the link to each of these articles are located in the video description box underneath. Show you the political motivation behind a lot of these mass shootings. Okay, I'm going to read this first article from Yahoo News. It's titled, Texas Gunman Warned Online He Was Going to Shoot Up School. Written by Acacia Coronado and Jim Vertuno. This article was originally written on Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, but updated today, Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. So underneath here is the day that this article was updated. So the article starts off by stating this. In Uvalde, Texas, the gunman who massacred 19 children and 2 teachers at an elementary school in Texas had warned on social media. Oh, what the hell? Oh, sorry about that. What in the world? What's going on? What's going on? Sorry about that. Something happened. I think I clicked on something. All right. Okay. I'm right here. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So, okay. This is from Yahoo News, and Yahoo got this from the Associated Press. Let me close this window, man. Okay. I think I clicked on something and close this damn window. Not interested in looking at this. Not interested. What the hell's going on, man? See, I kind of hate this. It's like when you scroll down, it's like the video up here. It's like when in a lot of these pages and a lot of these websites, when they have a video on the top and you scroll down, they make it so for the video can pop up on the lower right-hand corner, and I don't like that. To me, it's annoying, but okay. I'm sorry for that, guys. I'll continue reading. Okay. Well, I'll start reading. The article begins by stating, the gunman who massacred 19 children and 2 teachers at an elementary school in Texas had warned on social media minutes before the attack that he had shot his grandmother and gone to shoot up a school, the governor said Wednesday. Salvador Ramos, 18, used an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle in the bloodbath Tuesday at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. Uvalde or Uvalde, whichever way you pronounce it, I don't know. I may, as this video and this article go on, I may pronounce it either way, Uvalde or Uvalde. I don't know how to pronounce it, so hey, I'll continue reading. He had allegedly bought 2 such rifles just days before the attack, soon after his 18th birthday, authorities said. So the gunman named Salvador Ramos, who just turned 18, purchased 2 semi-automatic AR-15 styled weapons in his 18th birthday. I'll continue reading. About 30 minutes before the bloodbath, Ramos made 3 social media posts. Governor Greg Abbott said, that's the governor for the state of Texas, Greg Abbott. According to the governor, Ramos posted that he was going to shoot his grandmother, then that he shot the woman, and finally that he was going to shoot up an elementary school. So the shooter, according to the governor, allegedly made 3 posts on social media stating that he was going to shoot his grandmother. The second post was he made stating that he shot his grandmother, and the third post he made stating that he was going to shoot an elementary school. I'll continue reading. Abbott said Ramos, a resident of the community about 85 miles west of San Antonio, had no known criminal or mental health history. 17 people were also injured in the attack. Evil swept across Uvalde yesterday. Anyone who shoots his grandmother in the face has to have evil in his heart, Abbott said at a news conference. But it is far more evil for someone to gun down little kids. It is intolerable and it is unacceptable for us to have in the state anybody who would kill little kids in our schools. Democrat Beto O'Rourke, who is running against Abbott for governor this year, interrupted the news conference, calling the Republicans' response to the tragedy predictable. O'Rourke was escorted out while members of the crowd yelled at him, with one man calling him a sick son of a bitch. As details of the latest mass killing to rock the U.S. emerged, grief engulfed the small town of Uvalde, population 16,000. Your small town, only 16,000 people live in that town. The dead included an outgoing 10-year-old Eliana Garcia, who loved to sing, dance, and play basketball. A fellow 4th grader, Xavier Javier Lopez, who had been eagerly awaiting a summer of swimming, and a teacher, Eva Morales, with 17 years experience, whose husband is an officer with the school district's police department. I just don't know how people can sell that type of a gun to a kid 18 years old. Eliana's aunt, Saria Arizmendi, said angrily through tears. What is he going to use it for but for that purpose? She said. I'm going to stop right here for a minute, right? Now, this person, the aunt of one of the victims, my condolences to her, sorry that she had to experience, her niece dying like that. But the media purposely put her quote where she said, I just don't know how people can sell that type of a gun to a kid 18 years old. In my personal opinion, think that an 18-year-old is a kid, when by law, an 18-year-old is an adult. So this 18-year-old who went inside of that elementary school called a Robb Elementary in Texas yesterday wasn't a kid. He was a grown man, an adult, who went inside of that school and killed 19 kids and 2 other adults. But in my personal opinion, the media purposely, or the writer of this article purposely put this lady's quotes to once again to give readers this false notion that this is a result of a kid killing other kids just to try to convince the population of how it's necessary for there could be stricter gun laws in the United States of America. Because when you paint a picture of a quote unquote kid legally purchasing a gun, the average person, including myself, would think that this is fucked up, right? Just a picture of a kid purchasing a gun would make the average person say, oh no, we need to do something about this. We need to change these laws. So the writer of this article purposely put that there to make it seem as if this 18-year-old is a child. When in reality, once someone turns 18 in the United States of America, you are no longer a child. You are an adult. It is adults killing these kids. Oh, what's going on? What's up? Nah, he got shot, killed. Gold Professor. The gunman was killed. Yeah. Anti-social socialite podcast. What's up? Gold Professor, what's up? He said, peace to you, brother Wacky Word of Old chat. Lawrence Guy, what's up? Exactly, Gold Professor. You go to the military at 18. You can get life in prison at 18. Once you're 18 years old and you commit a crime, you're no longer sent to juvenile. You're not going to be sent. Oh, excuse me. Once you turn 18 and you commit a crime and you're found guilty of that crime in a court of law, you're not going to be sent to juvenile hall or any type of juvenile detention center. You'll be going to an adult prison. You'll be tried as an adult and go to an adult prison. Why? Because in the United States of America, once you're 18 years old, you are an adult. That is it. All right? So, but once again, this article, in my personal opinion, want to paint a picture of this 18-year-old as a kid to make the reader think that this is an incident of a kid purchasing a gun to kill other kids. And that picture, and if that picture is placed into the minds of the population, like I said before, the next reaction of the population is going to be, hey, these politicians need to do something to stop kids from buying guns. Thus, convincing or placing people closer to being convinced that America needs more gun control. And if you publicize the killing of children, especially non-black children, let's keep it real, especially non-black children, okay? If you publicize the deaths or the killing of non-black children all across America, is going to form a certain level of empathy across the United States, because of course we don't like to hear children being killed. I don't like to hear that when children being killed, regardless of race, color, and ethnicity. I don't like to hear that. Any decent human being would not like to hear the sound of children being shot and killed, especially when they're in school. So publicizing and broadcasting something like this will send some sort of emotion to the public, thus bringing them closer and closer to being convinced that there needs to be more gun restrictions. Where in actuality, the issue when it comes to these mass shootings, if these gunmen acted on their own and are not victims of CIA mind control, is the mental state and environment that these people come from. But I'll you know what? But I'll continue reading this article. Oh yeah, and also the same individual. Well, this article highlighted another comment from the same individual saying, "What is he going to use it for, but for that purpose?" In other words, it's a rhetorical question in which the person stated that the person is trying to state that the only reason that this 18-year-old would purchase that this person would purchase a gun is to hurt and kill people, as if that's the only reason why people in America purchase guns. Don't get me wrong, yes, there are people who purchase guns, whether legally or illegally, to commit criminal acts. But that, of course, that's not that's not the case when it comes to every person that purchases firearms. Most people purchase firearms for protection, in which they have the legal right to do that. But nonetheless, this statement gives the presumption that if a young person purchases a firearm, their only purpose is to cause harm. But once again, it's to convince the reader that the media purposely placed this statement to convince the reader that it is necessary for policies to be changed when it comes to gun laws and what have you. This is pure propaganda at play. I'll continue reading. Lieutenant Christopher Olivares of the Texas Department of Public Safety told CNN that all of those killed were in the same fourth grade classroom. The killer barricaded himself by locking the door and just started shooting children and teachers that were inside that classroom, Olivares said. It just shows you the complete evil of that shooter. Law enforcement officers eventually broke into the classroom and killed the gunman. Police and others responding to the attack also went around breaking windows at the school to enable students and teachers to escape. Investigators did not immediately disclose a motive, but in chilling posts on social media in the days and hours before the massacre, an account that appeared to belong to Ramos, that's the name of the killer, displayed photos of his guns and seemed to indicate something was going to happen. The attack in the predominantly Latino town of Uvalde was the deadliest school shooting in the U.S. since a gunman killed 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut on December 2012. I remember that like it was yesterday. Sad thing. And it's funny because in Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook shooting that happened in Connecticut in 2012, it's like the same incident happened. The killer went inside the school, and I think that allegedly police reported that the killer killed himself. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But what I can remember, this happened a decade ago, but what I can remember is that in Connecticut, the killer went inside of an elementary school, which is Sandy Hook Elementary, killed 20 children and 6 adults, and then he killed himself, allegedly. Thus was not alive to potentially explain his motive himself, his motive as to why he decided to do that. I'm not saying if he was alive, he would definitely explain why, but if he was still alive, he'd have a chance to explain why. Or to explain if he was the one that actually did it at all. Or to explain if he remembered ever doing it. So the same case, so what I'm trying to say is that the same result is with this shooting, with the exception that the alleged killer did not kill himself. He was killed in a hail of gunfire from police that was shooting at him. Because according to news reports, especially, including this article that I'm reading to you guys, the alleged killer fired at law enforcement when police came to the scene. The killer shot at the police, and the police shot back, and the killer was killed. Killer died. So thus, this killer is not alive to possibly explain his motive as to why he did this. Thus, we don't know what the real motive is. And in a lot of these mass shootings, it always ends with either the killer killing themselves or being killed. Thus, we don't, like I said, thus it ends up with us not knowing the real motive behind this killing. But I'll go on and continue reading. What's up, Toya? What's up? What's up? I'll continue reading. Okay. The bloodshed was the latest in a seemingly unending string of mass killings at churches, schools, stores, and other sites in the United States. Just 10 days earlier, 10 black people were shot to death in a racist rampage at a Buffalo, New York supermarket. We all know about that, unfortunately. In a somber address to the nation hours after the attack in Texas, President Joe Biden pleaded for Americans to stand up to the gun lobby and enact tougher restrictions, saying, when in God's name are we going to do what has to be done? So I'll stop right here for a moment. When it comes to these, okay, so this article basically points out something. How when President Joe Biden addressed this mass shooting, afterwards, he used that to try to convince the people to stand up against the gun lobby or against Texas gun lobby, because there was a gun lobby in the state of Texas, and Joe Biden used this unfortunate incident to urge the public to stand up against the lobby, and made this plea to try to make it seem as if agreeing to gun restrictions or stricter gun laws is going to reduce the chances of these incidents from happening again. When in reality, there are tons of illegal guns out in the street. So if anybody want to commit mass shootings, they can if they decide to purchase illegal guns, which is much cheaper than buying legal guns, by the way. So it's funny how, you find a lot of these politicians, especially on the Democratic side, speak about gun restriction, but they spend little time talking about restricting illegal guns, which is what tend to kill a whole lot of people that lives within America's inner cities. Isn't it funny when the news media speak about these mass shootings? Outside of the shooting in Buffalo, New York, they rarely include the shootings that take place in America's inner city. I mean, when it comes to so-called blacks killing so-called black people in inner cities, it's just known as some urban thing, urban crime. That's the label people tend to use. In other words, that's just a nice way to say this is some nigga shit. Fuck these niggas. I mean, America's inner cities is proof that gun restrictions is not going to drastically reduce gun crime. Okay? It's the environment that these people are placed in that will cause them to not develop the empathy and humanity for human life to the point of fact that they would do some stuff like that. If we concentrate more on improving these factors, you will see how the rate of violence will go down. But I'll continue reading. I'll continue reading this article. But the prospects for any reform of the nation's gun regulations appear dim. Repeated attempts over the years to expand background checks and enact other curbs have run into Republican opposition in Congress. On the day Ramos bought his second weapon last week, an Instagram account that investigators say apparently belonged to Ramos carried a photo of two AR-style rifles. Ramos apparently tagged another Instagram user, one with more than 10,000 followers, asking her to share the picture with her followers. I barely know you, and you tagged me in a picture with some guns, replied the Instagram user, who has since removed her profile. It's just scary. On the morning of the attack, the account linked to the gunman replied, I'm about to. Instagram confirmed to the Associated Press that it is working with law enforcement to review the account but declined to answer questions about the postings. Investigators are also looking at an account on TikTok, possibly belonging to the shooter, with a profile that reads, Kids Be Scared, IRL, an acronym meaning in real life. The profile is not dated. Officers found one of the rifles in Ramos's truck, the other in the school, according to the briefing given to lawmakers. Ramos was wearing a tactical vest, but it had no hardened body armor placed inside, lawmakers were told. He also dropped a backpack containing several magazines full of ammunition near the school entrance. That sounds fishy to me. I'm going to tell you why this sounds fishy. I don't know. Maybe this gunman grew up in a household where his family had enough money to afford something like that. But on average, right? An average 18-year-old who grew up like in the middle class area, or maybe in a working class environment, or in a lower class environment, would not be able to afford purchasing 2 assault rifles, body armor, and a book bag containing magazines full of ammunition. Because assault rifles are not cheap, especially when it comes to AR-15 or AR-15 style assault rifles. I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Someone in the comments section can correct me if I'm wrong. But purchasing an assault rifle legally is not cheap. I mean, the cheapest assault rifle you can find especially an AR-15 or, in this case, an AR-15 styled assault rifle. The cheapest you can find is probably for like $300 or $400. Alongside purchasing body armor and some magazines, these things are not cheap. So my question is, where did he have the money to afford that? I'm not even questioning why would he buy it. Because legally he's an adult. And I guess based on the state and or the county that he lived in, he's within the legal age to legally purchase a firearm. So I don't have an issue with an adult legally purchasing a firearm. But I'm just curious to know, where would he have the money, an 18-year-old? Because the average 18-year-old is broke as fuck. So I'm wondering, where would an 18-year-old, or how would an 18-year-old have the money to purchase 2 assault rifles, some body armor, and a couple of magazines? To me, that's fishy. That's fishy to me. What the Gold Professor said, Gold Professor said, I've said that this didn't happen yesterday. This speaks to the training of this palm color male. He was already engulfed into militia training, be it voluntary or involuntary. He was already engulfed into militia training, be it voluntarily or involuntarily. Okay. White folks have more money than you realize. SWP Disciple, this person was Latino. This person who purchased this weapon was Latino, and not only that, not every Caucasian person have a lot of money, contrary to popular belief. We can't walk around and think that, somebody just because of their skin color have a lot of money. Like I said, the average 18-year-old, regardless of race or ethnicity, is broke as fuck. So Lawrence Goss says an AR-15 ranges from 13 to 2200. Yeah. But there are some AR-15s, the cheaper ones. I'm talking about the cheapest ones you can get for about $400. And that's the cheapest AR-15. But on average, they range between $1,300 to $2,200. Yeah, Anti-Social says, Google says that the price of AR-15 ranges between $500 to over $2,000. Yeah. Yeah, a part-time job over 3 months would allow the purchase. Yeah, that's assuming that within these 3 months, someone with a part-time job saves every penny, doesn't spend one bit, doesn't pay any bills, don't give any money to their parents, or when it comes to the average teenager, don't spend the money on purchasing video games, clothing, sneakers, and what have you, and don't use to take girls out on dates, or what have you. And it depends how much people are getting paid in that specific area. When it comes to the minimum wage within that area, I just don't see, on average, an 18-year-old being able to purchase 2 assault rifles, some body armor, and a bag full of magazines. So my question is, where did he get the money from? Where did he get the money from? Well, he might be identified as palm color, but ethnically he's Latino. Maybe he's a Caucasian Latino. Maybe he's a Caucasian Latino, but ethnically he is Latino. Ethnically, racially, because Latino is not a race; it is an ethnicity. So I need to take that back when I told SWP Disciple that he's Latino, because he could be a Caucasian Latino. Maybe that's the case, but once again, his ethnicity and or race does not take away from the fact that the average 18-year-old, at least in the United States, are broke as fuck. So I'm just wondering, where did he get the money from to afford all this? Did somebody give him the money so he can buy these things? Huh? I'm just asking a question, but I'll continue reading. I'm just asking questions. That's all. Okay, I'll continue reading this article. One of the guns was purchased at a federally licensed dealer in the Uvalde area on May 17th, according to State Senator John Whitmire, who was briefed by investigators. Ramos bought 375 rounds of ammunition the next day. Yo, not only that, the 18-year-old, Salvador Ramos, the gunman, purchased 375 rounds of ammunition, man. I'm just saying, ammunition costs some money too if you're going to legally purchase it. So homeboy purchased 2 assault rifles, a body armor which did not have metal plates inside of it, and 375 rounds of ammunition. Like I said, and he's only 18 years old. Like I said, where did he get the money from to purchase all of these things? I'll continue reading. On Tuesday morning, Ramos shot and wounded his grandmother, then fled the scene, crashing his truck near the school and entering the building, authorities said. Dylan Silva, whose nephew was in a nearby classroom, said students were watching the Disney movie Moana when they heard several loud pops and a bullet shattered a window. Moments later, their teacher saw the attacker stride past the door. "Oh my God, he has a gun," the teacher shouted twice, according to Silva. The teacher didn't even have time to lock the door, he said. A tactical team forced its way into the classroom where the attacker was holed up and was met with gunfire from Ramos, but shot and killed him, according to Olivares. So, a tactical team, a team of law enforcement came into the classroom. Ramos, the gunman, opened fire on law enforcement, according to this article, and law enforcement fired back, killing Ramos. In the aftermath, families in Uvalde waited hours for word on their children. At the town civic center, where some gathered Tuesday night, the silence was broken repeatedly by screams and wails. "No, please, no," one man yelled as he embraced another man. On Wednesday morning, volunteers were seen arriving with Bibles and therapy dogs. Staff members in scrubs and devastated victims' relatives could be seen weeping as they left Uvalde Memorial Hospital, where many of the children were taken. 3 children and an adult were being treated at a San Antonio hospital, where 2 of them, a 66-year-old woman and 10-year-old girl, were listed in serious condition. That's horrible, man. That's horrible. Law enforcement officers investigating the bloodshed began serving search warrants and gathering telephone and other records. They also sought to contact Ramos's relatives and trace the guns. Uvalde, home to about 16,000 people, is 75 miles from the Mexican border. Robb Elementary, which has nearly 600 students in second, third, and fourth grades, is a single-story brick structure in a mostly residential neighborhood of modest homes. The close-knit community, built around a shaded central square, includes many Hispanic families who have lived there for generations. It sits amid fields of cabbage, onions, carrots, and other vegetables. But many of the steadiest jobs are supplied by companies that produce construction materials. Okay, it's a manufacturing town. And based on what I'm reading this paragraph, also a rural farming area. You know, when it says the town sits amid fields of cabbage, onions, carrots, and other vegetables, you know, it looks like, you know, seems like a rural or semi-rural area. But I'll continue reading. I've never been there before. I'm just basing my conclusions based on me reading this paragraph right here, but I'll continue reading. The attack came as the school was counting down to the last days of the school year with a series of themed days. Tuesday was to be footloose and fancy, with students wearing nice outfits. Condolences poured in from leaders around the world. Pope Francis said it is time to say enough to the indiscriminate trade of weapons. See? The writers of this article purposely put this quote by the Pope, knowing how the world revered the Pope. I don't know why. But nonetheless, the Western world reveres the Catholic Pope. And they purposely make the quote with him saying, stop the indiscriminate trade of weapons, as if buying and selling weapons was the problem and not the state of this gunman and or the possible CIA mind control of this individual committing this crime, and or the environment, that is, if this gunman acted on his own, that this person lived in to cause this person to become so crazy that he would do such a thing. No. These things are not factors as to why this horrific crime happened. The reason why this horrific crime happened, according to the Pope, is because of the quote-unquote indiscriminate trade of weapons. Although the legal sale of guns in America is not indiscriminate, because there is an age minimum to where someone can legally purchase a weapon. It's not indiscriminate in which anybody can come in and buy a weapon. You have to be of a certain age. You have to be an adult. And this gunman was an adult that legally purchased those two assault rifles, and unfortunately used those assault rifles to cause harm to innocent people. But it's not the quote-unquote indiscriminate trade of weapons that caused this to happen. It's the mindset of this individual that caused this thing to happen. But nonetheless, this article would have you believe that it's the sale of guns that's causing this, thus once again trying to convince the reader to believe in more gun control laws in America. Which is sad, because it's so sad that people are using the deaths of children to promote their own agenda. That's a sad thing, but I'll continue reading. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said his nation also knows the pain of losing innocent young lives. Man, Ukraine's a racist ass country, man. Fuck them. Texas, which has some of the most gun-friendly laws in the nation, has been the site of some of the deadliest shootings in the U.S. over the past 5 years. In 2018, a gunman killed 10 people at Santa Fe High School in the Houston area. A year before that, a gunman shot more than 24 people to death during a Sunday service in the small town of Sutherland Springs. In 2019, a gunman at a Walmart in El Paso killed 23 people in a racist attack targeting Hispanics. The shooting came days before the National Rifle Association annual convention was set to begin in Houston. Governor Greg Abbott and both of Texas's U.S. senators, all of them Republicans, were among the scheduled speakers at a forum Friday. Okay. So the shooting took place before an annual NRA convention, in which if someone who understands how to use mind control and put certain drugs in a person's system to manipulate their mind, to manipulate a person's mind to be such a cold-hearted assassin to the point that they would do such a thing in a state that recently lobbied gun restrictions, and at the same time, days before the annual NRA convention took place in that state, it would be a great idea, huh? I'm just saying, if that was the case, that would be a great idea. Oh, I was just reading a comment. That's why I'm so silent. Yeah. So my thing is that it's very unfortunate that the shooting happened. But at the same time, it's even more unfortunate how people use this shooting to try to promote an agenda to restrict people's rights to bear arms. Creating more gun control laws, creating more gun restriction in society, like I said several times before in this video, is not going to solve the problem in regards to these so-called mass shootings. It is fixing the environment that caused people to go crazy, that's going to drastically reduce the number of mass shootings if Project MK Ultra was non-existent. I have to put that there. But do you see how the mainstream media, especially like in this article, for example, how they try to sway the reader to believe that gun restriction would be the solution to these types of horrific events by highlighting quotes of certain individuals that try to make it seem that the sale of guns is the problem and not environment and mental state of these individuals who do these crimes. That's why I'm saying there's a political motive behind these shootings. And And with that, I'm going to show you guys another article by the New York Post. And this other article from the New York Post, the link to this article is also located in the video description box underneath. Hold on, let me, okay. What's going on here? Okay, here we go. And the title of this article blatantly stated, Biden blames Texas school shooting on gun lobby, demands new gun laws. You know, it lets you know straight up what the agenda is. You know, the article is written. Oh, it's too big. Too big. Okay. Yeah, I magnified it a little bit too big. All right. Yeah, this is big enough. This is good. Okay. So the article is written by Stephen Nelson, written on May 24th, 2022 at 9:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, U.S. And the article starts off by stating this. President Biden on Tuesday night said the gun lobby is responsible for U.S. mass shootings and called for new gun control laws after a gunman murdered 18 children and 2 adults at an elementary school in Texas. Now, the other article from Yahoo states that 19 children were killed and 2 adults, but whether the number is 19 or 18, regardless, it's still, unfortunately, too many people killed at one time. But once again, in this article, it talks how Biden agenda in convincing the population in accepting new gun control laws by blaming a Texas gun lobby for the reason that this shooting occurred. As if Texas didn't lobby for new gun policies and new gun restrictions have been passed, as if a gunman cannot utilize illegal guns to do the same thing. Like I said, most gun violence in the inner city, which are mass shootings in itself, is done through the use of illegal weapons. That is more accessible, unfortunately, than stores that sell legal weapons, and it's even more affordable. Like illegal guns, unfortunately, are cheaper and more affordable than guns that are sold legally in stores. Once again, look at your average inner city in the United States. Hell, look at your average third world country in places like the Caribbean, Latin America, parts of Africa, hell, even in Great Britain, where just the use of civilians having guns is totally illegal. But yet, in the rough inner cities of London, a lot of kids over there got guns. So it's like, what's the real issue here? And a lot of these places that I just named are poor areas where crime is at a high rate. So what's really the problem when it comes to shootings in general? Is it just the guns itself or the environment that these people are in that influences certain thinking to the point that they would utilize these weapons to take away another person's life? Which ones is it? Because once again, these areas that I just pointed out have an extremely high rate of gun violence done not by legal guns, but by illegal guns. So if you put more restrictions, so if America puts more restrictions on the purchasing of legal guns, but don't do things to improve the environment that certain people live in, that would cause a certain mindset that will bring about this crazy things from happening, what improvement will we see? My answer would be not that much. Not that much. But I'll continue reading this article. As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name will we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? Biden said in remarks from the White House just before 9 p.m. It's been 3,448 days, 10 years, since I stood up at a grade school in Connecticut where another gunman massacred 26 people, including 20 first graders at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. Since then, there have been over 900 incidents of gunfire reported on school grounds. Biden added, the list grows when you include mass shootings at places like movie theaters, houses of worship, and as we just saw, or as we saw just 10 days ago at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. I am sick and tired of it. We have to act. And don't tell me we can't have an impact on this carnage. Once again, this is Biden's words, trying to use this situation that happened in Texas, the situation that happened in Buffalo, and the situation that happened in Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut 10 years ago, to convince the people to accept more restrictions when it comes to their Second Amendment rights. Salvador Ramos, 18, allegedly shot his grandmother before arriving around noon local time at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, about 80 miles west of San Antonio. Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez said he was armed with 2 assault rifles that he bought on his 18th birthday. We can't and won't prevent every tragedy, but we know gun laws work and have a positive impact. When we passed the assault weapons ban in 1994, mass shootings went down. When the law expired in 2004, mass shootings tripled, Biden said. All right, let me stop right here. When Biden made that remark, I would like to know, did he include shootings that happened in the inner cities in the 1990s when it comes to mass shootings going down? That's what I would like to know, because in the 1990s, mass shootings was not a rare thing in America's inner cities in the 1990s. So I just wonder that when people speak about mass shootings, do they include shootings that take place in the inner city? Because the inner city of America, for the past, I'll say 4 decades, has never been a stranger to mass shootings. But, I guess since most of these mass shootings happen among so-called black people, blacks killing blacks, I guess it's not a big deal, right? It's not a mass. I guess it's not really much of a tragedy, right? Shoot. I remember as a kid growing up in New York City in the 1990s, how it was common for students to go up inside of a public school and shoot at people. Well, school shootings was a very common thing in inner city schools during the 1980s and 1990s. Yeah. But I guess I don't know. I guess society don't care about that. It's but let me go on and continue to read this article. The idea that an 18-year-old kid, here we go, with news articles referring to an 18-year-old as a kid, when by law, an 18-year-old is an adult. But I'll continue reading. The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong. What in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone? Deer aren't running through the forest with Kevlar vests on, for God's sake, Biden said. Look at that. Once again, the point of calling this 18-year-old man, or excuse me, this 18-year-old adult male as a kid is to put or to paint the false picture in the minds of a lot of Americans to convince that this mass shooting was a result of a kid killing other kids, just to try to further convince people in America to agree with more gun restrictions. Because like I said before, no one likes the sound or likes to hear kids being killed, especially if it's done at the hands of another child, right? Which is why, in my personal opinion, Joe Biden painted the picture of the gunman as a kid or a child, when in reality, that gunman was 18 years old, thus that person was an adult, not a kid. This person right here, 18, this is the picture of the gunman. This person was not a kid. This person was an adult. When you're 18 years old, you're an adult. When you're 18 years old, you are an adult, not a kid. And when Biden, in this, according to this article, continue to ask this rhetorical question, what in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone? So when Biden made that rhetorical question, once again, it's to paint the picture in the eyes of Americans that the only possible reason that someone would purchase an assault rifle is to hurt innocent people. According to that statement, that would be the only reason why someone would purchase an assault rifle. Thus, once again, when you paint that picture in the minds of Americans, it would increase, or it would potentially increase or further convince American people that there needs to be more gun restrictions. Where in reality, legal gun sales is not the problem. The problem when it comes to a lot of these issues is the environment and mental state of a lot of these individuals. But I'll continue reading. Oh, where was I? Okay. It's just sick. And the gun manufacturers have spent 2 decades aggressively marketing assault weapons, which make them the most and largest profit. For God's sake, we have to for God's sake, we have to have the courage to stand up to the industry. Okay. When's the last time have Biden said that when it comes to so many people within the inner city dying dying by means of illegal guns? Come on now. Biden concluded by noting the U.S. has more mass shootings than any other countries and calling for new gun control laws. Okay. Now, once again, like I asked this question before, once again, and I'm going to ask this question once again. What do they refer to as mass shootings? What do the media and Joe Biden or any other politician define as a mass shooting? Because gang-related shootings that happens in different countries around the world, that's that's an example of a mass shooting. Okay. In different parts across the world, especially in third world countries, where you have different paramilitary gangs shooting the hell out of each other, which a lot of times result in a lot of innocent people getting caught up in the crossfire, happens. That's a mass shooting. I mean, what is counted as a mass shooting? Does Biden include inner city crime or gun related violence in inner cities as mass shootings? I mean, what do these people consider to be a mass shooting? But I'll continue reading. Biden concluded by noting the U.S. has more mass shootings than any other countries and called for new gun control laws. Oh yeah, I already read that sentence. That's just once again another way to convince the masses to accept more gun restrictions. I'll continue reading. Why are we willing to live in this carnage? Why do we keep letting this happen? Where in God's name is our backbone? To have the courage to deal with it and stand up to the lobbies. It's time to turn this pain into action. For every parent, for every citizen of this country, we have to make it clear to every elected official in this country, it's time to act, Biden said. It's time for those who obstruct or delay or block the common sense gun laws. We need to let you know that we will not forget. We can do so much more. We have to do more. Biden learned of the shooting as he returned from a trip to South Korea and Japan aboard Air Force One. The White House released a photo of Biden speaking on the phone to Governor Greg Abbott from his desk on the presidential aircraft. In the proclamation, Biden ordered flags to half-staff over federal buildings through Saturday. Ramos died at the scene of the massacre, authorities said. The attack is similar to the 2012 massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School. In that case, Adam Lanza, 20, killed his mother before murdering 26 people at the Connecticut school. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke about the tragedy about an hour after Biden, saying enough is enough. As a nation, we have to have the courage to take action and understand the nexus between what makes reasonable and sensible public policy to ensure something like this never happens again. Harris said at a DC gala for the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies. He said what makes reasonable and sensible public policy to ensure something like this never happens again. Yeah, public policy, in other words, put more gun restriction in America, and supposedly something like this, another school shooting or another mass shooting, won't happen again. More propaganda by politicians to restrict people's Second Amendment rights. That's all it is. I'll continue reading this article. But any gun law reforms will remain a tough sell in Congress. Most bills require 60 votes in Senate, and Democrats control just 50 seats. Senator Joe Manchin told a scrum of reporters Tuesday evening that he doesn't support changing the 60 vote threshold for legislation. The filibuster is the only thing that prevents us from total insanity, Manchin said, explaining he wanted common sense gun reforms without changing Senate rules. The shooting occurred one day before the Senate confirmation hearing for Stephen Dettelbach to be director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, aka the ATF. Also Wednesday, Biden will announce new restrictions on transfers of military equipment to police and the creation of an officer misconduct registry on the second anniversary of George Floyd's murder by Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin. Okay, he's going to create a registry for officer misconduct. Oh, he already created an officer misconduct registry. Oh, wow. Oh, well, that's a good thing about Biden. Okay. I'll give him that. That's a good thing. But will this registry actually reduce the number of officer misconduct? But that's for another topic. Let me stay on topic. I'll continue reading. Last month, Biden said his administration would attempt to ban ghost gun kits via regulation to close a loophole that allows businesses to sell most AR-15 semi-automatic rifle parts without a federal background check, along with partially complete low receiver part that buyers then finish off at home. Wow. Okay. During remarks last month, Biden also called on Congress to pass laws to ban what he called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and to mandate background checks for all private gun transfers. He also said Congress should impose a blanket ban on owning guns without serial numbers and repeal liability protections for gun makers. Congress rarely passes gun policy legislation, meaning most change takes place through regulation. In 2018, for example, the Trump administration banned bump stocks that hastened the firing rate of semi-automatic rifles after the tool was used to murder 60 people at a Las Vegas concert. I remember that. All right, I'm done. So I guess Biden will do something concerning illegal guns when he's talking about the stop of sales of guns sold without serial numbers on them. But yeah, a lot of these things, this is just another article that I read where you see more political propaganda written within the article to try to convince the reader that the solution to stop or to drastically reduce the amount of mass shootings is to accept new gun control laws. And both articles spoke about how it's very rare for the U.S. to have or to create new policies concerning gun control, and how it's very difficult for these laws to be passed. And I think mainly because a lot of the American people do not agree with a lot of these gun control laws being passed. So thus, in my opinion, it's necessary for there to be more Manchurian candidates to bring about to cause a lot of these mass shootings. This is just my personal opinion. For these Manchurian candidates to keep walking inside these public places and cause these mass shootings, to put the American public in a higher and higher state of fear, to the point of the fact that their fear would drive them to agree for more gun restrictions in America. That's what I view a lot of these mass shootings to be, and I'll continue to view them until further notice. Yeah, sorry to laugh, because this is not a laughing matter. And this is the thing when it comes to what I realize about America is that America, when it comes to a lot of these situations, they're not, when it comes to a lot of these situations, America, well, I'll say the people in power try to promote this thinking where, in order to solve these types of problems, you don't resolve the root of what's causing these issues. You just get rid of things. You just do things like remove people's gun rights. It's like when a lot of people in power, they like to make people believe that they must do whatever it takes, to get rid of the symptoms, but not get rid of the root cause of these symptoms, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, when it comes to these issues, when it comes to gun control and the mass shootings, politicians want to convince the public that the solution to end or drastically reduce the amount of mass shootings in America is to reduce or potentially stop the sale and transfer of guns in America, where the solution is much more deeper than that. The solution is to find out the environmental factors that would cause people to be inside of a mental state to do something like that. And that's what politicians do not want to work on. And I'm saying that assuming that these gunmen that cause these mass shootings are not Manchurian candidates, but individuals who are acting on their own. If they're acting on their own and are not products of CIA mind control to carry out a mission to promote an agenda, then these people are mentally disturbed and came from an environment that puts them in a position of being mentally disturbed. So if society truly care about reducing these mass shootings, they should take action in fixing the environment that will cause people to do such things. Thus, I have two theories when it comes to a lot of these mass shootings. One theory, assuming that one theory, which is more of a conspiracy theory, that a lot of these mass shooters are products of mind control, and another theory, assuming if these gunmen are not products of mind control, that it's the environment that's the problem. Either way, people in power convincing the American public that they must enact new laws or new regulations to put stricter stipulations on the sale of guns is not going to do that much of a change when it comes to mass shootings in America. It's not. You have to improve the environment that these people live in that reduces the chances of people that would reduce the chances of people going crazy. Because remember, environment has a big and profound influence on the mental state of human beings. Human beings go through a lot of mental illness, a lot of times due to the environment that they come from, whether it's their immediate home environment and how they grew up, and or the environment of the communities that they live in, that puts people in the mental state of going crazy to the point of the fact that they'll break and do something this crazy, like take other people's lives. But you know what? Politicians don't give a fuck about that. Because in reality, a lot of politicians don't give a fuck for the people. So it's up to us to decide, truly solve issues when it comes to violence in America, especially in Black America. Instead of believing the political motives of these politicians and their false solutions when it comes to ending or reducing mass shootings in America. But that's all I have to say concerning this topic. Hold up. In other words, hold on. I'll take that back. That's all I have to say in this video. So I hope you guys learned something today. If you agree or disagree with me, let me know in the comment section. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my mind is playing tricks on me, like I'm Scarface and the Ghetto Boys or something. Maybe I'm going paranoid. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the maybe it's just me, but I don't see placing more restrictions on people's Second Amendment rights as a viable solution to reduce or end gun violence. Although nah. I don't. I believe that there needs to be a much more crackdown on illegal guns, right? I believe that. But I definitely believe that one's environment, that the environment needs to change, because so many people in America or across the world comes from very hostile environments. I mean, it's no coincidence why in so-called Black America, why we always say that mental health or mental illness is real in Black America. Well, what's the main thing that causes a lot of mental illness in Black America? A hostile environment, right? Whether it's a hostile environment in the person's immediate home or a hostile environment in the neighborhoods that so-called Black people live in. That hostile environment put a lot of put a lot of people in positions where they end up suffering from depression, which is a mental illness, and which other mental illness. And I personally believe that mental illnesses such as psychosis and schizophrenia is partly due to the environment that people live in. I also believe that a hostile environment is is uh is one factor of people suffering from sociopathy, aka being a sociopath. Although a lot of psychologists do say that people are born being psychopaths and or sociopaths, but my personal belief is that psycho and sociopaths can be created when they come from a hostile living environment. So I think environment is a major factor when it comes to the cause of violence in general. And people that suffer from these mental illness that I just named, depression, schizophrenia, psychosis, sociopathy, aka being a psychopath, or someone who's aka being a sociopath, or someone who's a psychopath. People that suffer from these illnesses have and or can have the potential to commit these types of horrific crimes. Lawrence Guy says mass shootings were prevalent in the 1980s with the advent of crack cocaine and the creation of drive-by shootings in New York. Yeah. The crack cocaine epidemic, and let's not forget Reaganomics, that increased the poverty rate in inner cities, increased the crime rate, especially when it comes to mass shootings. So environment is a big factor when it comes to the cause of people committing violence. Now, at the same time, I'm not going to say that people do not have the ability to just act on their own and commit violence. Because sometimes some people could just be that crazy. Some people didn't come from a hostile living environment, probably came from a decent environment and still can be killers. But I don't believe that people like that compromise of the majority of those who commit violence. I think the overall majority of people that commit violence are partially influenced or affected by the hostile environments that they come from, which is no coincidence why gangs exist, not only in America but across the world. And they exist mostly in poor living conditions and poor hostile environments. Hey, yo, what's up, Ayo? Ayo says at 18, I was still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Yeah, same here. Same here. He said, I was in my room playing WoW. What is that? What is WoW? Or maybe that's an acronym. I don't know. I don't know what's that. Janadrian Batard says, what's next? They're going to try to abandon cars, hammers, etc. Yeah, they kill people too. Cars and hammers kill people too. You said a lot of them really need God for real. Yeah, a lot of people like that really need God in their life. But that's all I have to say in this video. Oh, man. Damn, I was speaking for like, what, over a half hour. All right, so, once again, rest in power to the victims of the Robb Elementary School shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And my condolences to their loved ones. And another rest in power to the victims of the Tops grocery store shooting in Buffalo, New York, that happened a week or so ago. And my condolences to their families. And rest in power and condolences to all people who have been victims of gun-related violence. All right, peace out. Oh, World of Warcraft. Okay, World of Warcraft. That's what you meant. Okay, yeah. All right, man. You guys, peace out.